In the second place, there is a problem of synonyms. The repetition of single words over and over is awkward and boring, except in mathematical writing. And so, good authors often substitute different words having the same or very similar meaning for important words in their text. This is just opposite of the situation where one word can stand for several terms. Here, one and same term is represented by two or more words used synonymously. We can express this symbolically as follows. Let X and Y be different two different words used such as enlightenment and insight. Let the later A stand letter A stand for the same meaning that each can express, namely, again in understanding. Then XA and YA represent the same terms, though they are distinct as words. When you speak of reading for insight and reading for enlightenment, we are referring to the same kind of reading because two phrases are being used with the same meaning. The words are different, but there is only one term for you as a reader to grasp. This is important, of course, if you suppose that every time an author changed his words, he was shifting his terms, you would make as a great an error as to suppose that every time he used the same words, the term remained the same. Make a great error as great an error as to suppose that every time he used the same words, the term remained the same. Keep this in mind when you list the author's vocabulary and terminology in separate columns. You will find two relationships. On the one hand, a single word may be related to several terms. On the other hand, a single term may be related to several words. In third place, finally, there is matter of phrases. If a phrase is a unit, that is, if it is a whole that can be the subject or predicate of a sentence, it is like a single word. Like a single word, it can refer to something being talked about in some way. It follows, therefore, that a term can be expressed by a phrase as well as by a word. And all the relation exists between words and terms hold also between terms and phrases. Two phrases may express the same term, and one phrase may express several terms according to the way its constituent words are used. In general, a phrase is less likely to be ambiguous than a word because it's a group of words, each of which is in the context of the other. The single words are more likely to have restricted meanings. That is why a writer is likely to substitute a fairly elaborate phrase for a single word if he wants to be sure that you can get his meaning. One illustration should suffice. To be sure that you come to terms with us about reading, we substitute phrases like reading for enlightenment for a single word, reading. To make doubly sure, we may substitute a more elaborate phrase such as the process of passing from understanding less to understanding more by operation of your mind upon a book. There's only one term here, a term referring to the kind of reading that this book is mostly about. But the one term that is expressed by a single word, a short phrase, and a longer one. This has been a hard chapter to write and probably a hard one to read. The reason is clear. The rule of reading we have been discussing cannot be made fully intelligible without going into all sorts of grammatical and logical explanation about words and terms. In fact, we have actually done very little explaining. To give an adequate account of these matters would take many chapters. We have merely touched upon the most essential points. We hope we have said enough to make the rule a useful guide in practice. The more you put it into practice, the more you will appreciate intricacies of the problem. You will want to know something about the literal and metaphorical use of words. You will want to know about the distinction between abstract and concrete words and between proper and common names. You will become interested in the whole business of definition, the difference between defining words and defining things, why some words are indefinable and yet have definite meaning, and so forth. You will seek light on what is called the emotive use of words, that is, the use of words to arouse emotion, to motive men to action or change their minds, as distinct from communication of knowledge. And you may even become interested in the relation between ordinary, rational speech and bizarre or crazy talk, the speech of the mentally disturbed, where almost every word carries weird and unexpected but nevertheless identifiable connotations. If the practice of analytical reading elicits these further interests, you will be in a position to satisfy them by reading books on these special subjects, and you will profit more from reading such books because you will go to them with a question born of your own experience in reading. The study of grammar and logic, the science that underlie these rules, is practically only to the extent you can relate it to practice. You may never wish to go further, but even if you do not, you will find that your comprehension of any book will be enormously increased if you only go to the trouble of finding its important words, identifying their shifting meanings, and coming to terms. Seldom does such change in habit have a large effect.